Speaking is becoming even more important as days go by. So the question of how are you showing up is becoming more important too. And that's why we have Meredith here today. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself, why this topic matters to her, and why it should matter to you. Meredith, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, speaking is so important because we are asked as professionals, as entrepreneurs, small business owners to speak often. And whether that be on a stage or in a boardroom, here on a podcast, an audio room, social media, there are so many places where we are being asked to use our voice. And so in order to do that, it's important that we have places where we can practice our speaking voice and build that confidence so that we can show up more effectively. I would even say that goes just as far as communicating one-on-one with people and networking events as well.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that so much. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you fit into this conversation?
Thank you. My background is in performance. I have some directing experience. I am a former improv teacher for the Second City way back when I was younger, but I have always carried that through into the work that I do. So I have worked a lot in the corporate world, working with teams, using improv as a way to build confidence, to communicate better, heighten our awareness when it comes to our listening and how we're hearing each other. And I now help individuals get on more stages and share their stories through that experience that I've had as a performer. I'm really good at helping people level up those physical skills, their vocal skills, and then how they just can own that space, engage better with their audiences.
And how important is that? Like whether you're on a big stage speaking to hundreds of people, or whether you're actually just going live on social media, being able to be articulate, being able to be expressive, being able to really tell a story in a way that is engaging and relatable, that's all going to get your audience, whether it's one or thousands, invested in you, invested in themselves, invested in the action that you want them to take.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel oftentimes I think what people are thinking is like, I don't have that big grandiose story to tell, or not a lot of like tragedy has happened in my life. So I can't really speak from these places of healing and trauma and how I've overcome adversity. But I will push back and say every story is significant and every story is interesting, and that your voice is needed in the larger conversation. For myself, I really love helping people speak and find their voice, because even as a kid, I was super shy. I would sit in the back row. I was afraid to have the wrong answer or sound foolish if the teacher were to call upon me. So it was much easier to hide. And as an adult, that still happens for me. And here I am. I've been on a lot of stages and I've been on a lot of podcasts. And I still have those moments where I'm like, oh my goodness, please don't ask that next question, because I'm really quite terrified right now for some reason, because of the way everything has come together in this world. In this moment in time, I'm feeling that fear again. So we all go through it. And it's important that we continue exercising that muscle. I had to, as an actor, to stay sharp. We have to as speakers. So you need to find that community to do that in, or get on more podcasts or exercise just like an athlete would when it comes to you and your speaking game.
It's so true. And the thing that I really love about your story is because it isn't one of those tragedy stories. It isn't one of those grand overcoming adversity stories. It's simply, I was shy, so I did something about it.
Yeah.
And that makes it all the more relatable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because how many other people felt shy, insecure, just lacking confidence, low self-esteem, and they're sitting there going, yeah, but that's everybody. There's nothing special. That's very important, because if there are a lot of people experiencing it, then that makes you even more relatable, and people can engage with what you're sharing.
Yeah.
So hesitating for that, using that as a reason to hesitate, let's throw that in the trash right now, right? Show up.
100%. Yes.
So you mentioned improv, though.
Uh-huh.
And that, to a lot of people, can be intimidating in and of itself.
Mhm.
I always envision that improv show where the comedians come in and they have to
Whose line is it
whose
anyway?
line?
Yeah.
Yes, whose line? Oh my goodness. And it's great, right? But I know for myself, the idea of being put on the spot like that feels very intimidating. So how do you go about, because I know this is very much embedded in your program and how you
Mhm.
approach things. How do you go about kind of circumventing that intimidation factor?
Well, to start, I don't single people out. So we're doing it together as a group. We're building trust because that I feel is the thing that needs to be built first and foremost is how to build trust with that group. And it's also going to then help you find ways to build trust with your communities faster as well. So if you are speaking, how is it that you're building trust with that particular audience? So that's the first thing. The second thing, too, I feel is important with improv is that yes, we're making stuff up on the spot, but there's a structure to it. And so what we get to do is we get to practice that structure within this safe and brave environment together. And yes, there's a lot of laughter, there's a lot of failure, there's a lot of working things out, but we get to do it together and it's fun. It's a really fun way to exercise that muscle as a speaker because you are going to fail and you are going to flub here and there. And at the same time, you're going to be doing a lot of laughing. And you're also going to learn how these exercises, these structures that I give, are applicable in your real world situations, which is what we do. So it's not just we play games, we do an exercise, then we debrief it. We talk about how is this applicable? What did I learn from this? What did I notice about myself? For example, did I feel hot under the skin? Was I holding my breath because I was feeling nervous? And if so, what is it then that I can adjust so that when I come up against that in a real world situation, I know how to manage it better?
That makes so much sense. I'm sitting here thinking about like all the times that just day to day, I mean, even in conversations with my own grandmother, where I need to respond to something that kind of feels uncomfortable and was not expecting my 80, almost 88-year-old grandmother to bring up. I'm like, how am I going to respond to this in a way that's both tactful and representative of my beliefs, but also
Yeah.
respectful of who she is as an old lady. Like, let's be real, right? So you gotta
Yeah.
flow with that. Now, you said something really important, though. I think is when you were talking about how you learn a lot about yourself,
Hmm.
and I think that aspect of things will. I was thinking more like self exploration.
Hmm.
That felt good. That didn't feel good. Showing up in this capacity. So you're actually finding your voice.
Hmm. Hmm. One of my favorite quotes that I use often is notice what you notice. So you're noticing your own sensations in your body, you're noticing and scanning the room. Perhaps you're becoming more aware of other people's body language, but just notice what you notice. Notice the sounds of the room. Notice how your feet feel on the floor. Notice the ceiling above your head. So it's more about this also full body awareness and also this internal awareness that I
Mhm.
don't feel unless you're deep into some sort of a mind body practice, this is not something that is pretty typical for people. So why not find solutions for how we can do that? That doesn't feel intimidating and is fun and that you can take with you to continue to practice.
Notice what you notice and how you presented it. Like, that is very much mindfulness and presence, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm,
it's not only developing your voice and allowing yourself to kind of explore the world of what does it mean to be me in this space right now,
mhm.
but I feel like it's also a really important way to recenter yourself and calm yourself when you aren't necessarily in a super comfortable position. Like
Yeah,
when you have cameras on you, lights, camera, action, whew, that can get hot.
and
But
if
if you
you've
notice,
yes, if you notice and you've practiced it, right? So there's a lot of people that get in these situations, they're not gonna think about breath, or the breath isn't gonna automatically kick in. I actually yesterday, there was an event that was happening on my street, outside of it's called Cabrini Wellness, and a friend of mine owns it, and so she had this community event, and I was talking to a woman who owns a studio, a yoga studio, and they do breath work. And she was telling me how she really understood and realized the importance of all of the breath work she had been doing when she got into a fight or flight experience with somebody that was completely um it was an unexpected moment. She was
Mhm.
in a fear state. Someone confronted her, and she said what happened was really amazing. It just she could feel her breath kick in. She started doing the inhale on a 4 count, the box breathing, holding on a 4 count, exhaling on a 4 count. And it wasn't like she was thinking like, "Oh, in this moment where I'm having a fight or flight situation, I need to do my breath work." No, she's had an automatic response to do it. Why? Because she had been practicing up until that point, and that's when she realized how impactful it is. And I would say that's exactly what I'm trying to do with my community is if we practice this when you need it, it's going to kick in
And you won't even realize it
and you won't
until
even
after the
realize it.
fact. And then you're like, hey, look at me.
Yeah, look at me. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I also encourage people to like build in their rituals, right?
Right.
So if you are giving a talk and it's high stakes and you're feeling it and the life is happening, what's your pre-presentation ritual? What are you doing to give yourself that 5 or 10 minutes before you get on stage? And it could be shaking hands and making eye contact with your audience first. That might be something that calms your nervous system. But if that's not something that's going to calm your nervous system, then go find something that does fit for you. I used to do jumping jacks and push-ups and listen to my favorite music and count out loud and move my body, move that energy. Like people
Yeah.
don't move the energy, they stay stagnant and they hold on to their cup of coffee for dear life.
That's that's absolutely. I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could sit there and just hold my coffee or my water or I don't even think I could shake the hands with the people. I could, but it would already put me into that state and I wouldn't want that. So I agree with you. I think I'd have to listen to some music and do some
Move your
movement just to
body.
get,
Maybe
yeah,
you go
get
to the
that energy
bathroom stall.
flowing.
Yeah, if you need private
Absolutely.
time, find it. Find it.
I
It's
love
there, but
that.
you have to be a little bit more intentional.
Absolutely. No,
Mhm.
that's perfect. And another thing that I want another angle that I wanted to look at as we're approaching this, because you're not always going to get these opportunities to
Right.
ground yourself beforehand, which is why the practice is important.
Yep.
But also the practice and we're going to say the preparation it's leading you toward presenting in a way, showing up in a way that creates opportunity.
Yes.
So we talked about how as a business owner, you need to be able to know your voice. You need to be
Mhm.
able to show up in a way that's on the ball, even when you're not expecting it necessarily.
Mhm.
But this goes across fields. I mean, if you're in the corporate space, you need to do the same thing. If you
Oh,
want to advance
100%.
your career or advance your own business, these are really important skills.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about your personal brand and
Mm.
how this sort of thing kind of fosters the development of your personal brand. And then, of course, sharing your personal brand with the world because they're all interconnected.
Oh, my goodness, yes. Well, I mean, let's just look at social media alone. W- i- Video is the most effective form of social media. Doing video, like that's why TikTok, Instagram Reels, video is such a quick way for your audience to get to know you and for you to start building that trust with them. So if you're not doing video, I would say now is the time to start. That is using your voice, that is getting really clear about when you're clear about who you're speaking to, that's the most effective video. It's when you're trying to speak to the masses, that's that least effective video. But getting comfortable with that, getting comfortable with saying yes and to being on podcasts, uh, getting comfortable with speaking in audio rooms. I will say, I was on Clubhouse during the pandemic, like lots and lots of people were. I even started to develop my speaking confidence in those rooms. And what happened was it helped me get more and more clear because the more and more I spoke and the more I listened, the more clear I got about how I wanted to start showing up. But if you're not pressing up against anything, it's difficult to learn if you're just sitting in your own head all of the time and not communicating and articulating the thoughts in your head out loud to other people. So I feel like there's just so much knowledge to be had in that. So I say, yes, speak as much as you possibly can, write as much as you possibly can, tell as many stories as you possibly can as you are developing your brand, because it will help you be more clear about how you want to show up in the world.
And stop.
And that's it.
I was like, we can end there. Okay, everybody, let's go home.
We're done.
That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. Now, that said,
Yeah.
because I don't want to open another whole can of worms, because I know that you and I can do this.
We can be here all
I'm
day.
very well.
You have 24
aware.
hours. We do. Who's kidding?
That's right. That's right. I mean, we could keep going. It could be a whole talk show. However, we do have a limited amount of time. So
We do.
even though you just dropped a huge gold nugget for our audience, I want to ask you if you've got anything in you that is just burning to get out, that you feel like the audience needs to know over and above what you've already shared. And if you do, I know you do, please take the time to share it now, because I know that this is an opportunity for people to get to know you and to get into your world, which I strongly encourage everyone to do. Now, before we do that, I want to remind everyone that this conversation and conversations just like that are happening every single week. So if you subscribe now, then you'll be able to catch every single one as they come out. And there are new conversations about marketing, about your brand, about your introspection and mindfulness that we already talked about here. It's all connected and is coming out every week. So take the time to subscribe now. And Meredith, you're going to have the stage. Share that burning thing that you have to say.
Okay, I have two things. I'm going to share two things. The first thing is I'm going to give you an exercise to do. And that exercise is I'm going to give you a prompt. And that prompt is, I want you to pick up the first thing that you see in front of you. It could be mundane. Like for me, I have this big lip gloss that I keep on my desk all the time. And I want you to just out loud, extemporaneously, on the spot, tell me a story about it. Even the most mundane of objects. I can tell you the story about this one. My friend Nicole, who I met on Clubhouse, came to visit me from Canada. And we were here in New York City in my neighborhood, Washington Heights, and we were having brunch together, and we were so excited to see each other. And she whips this out of her purse and she starts putting it on her lips. And she's like, this stuff is the bomb. So of course I had to come home and buy it. So that's a short, quick story. You got a little bit, and I love it. You got a little bit of my emotional feeling towards it. You got a little backstory about my friend Nicole and I. So there is a story in even the most mundane thing. And so that is the first prompt I'm going to give you. And I want you to practice that. And there's other things. You could get on ChatGPT and say, give me 5 prompts for storytelling. If you can't think of other prompts, it could be like, who's your favorite person from history? It could be, tell me a story about the first vacation you remember. It could be anything, but that's going to be a really great way for you to start sharing stories that might be a great comparison for something, your product or service, but you won't know if you don't start exploring and brainstorming. So with that said, I'm going to share with you my Confidently Speaking program. It is a full year program. We meet 4 times a month, every Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern time, where we do exercises like this. We have a theme every month. This month, our theme happens to be persuasive speaking. So I give you practical tools for how to be more persuasive. Then we play exercises. We do breathing exercises. We do all those things to help build yourself as a speaker. And then on the 4th Wednesday, we get practice time. So if you have the video that you're working on, or you have the keynote that you're giving, or you need to show up on a podcast and you want the support of your community, that is a place where you get to come and practice. The reason why it's a year long is because you have to show up. You've got to do the reps. If you just show up for a week, I'm sorry, but you're not going to feel the payoff.
And mic drop. There's like the 17th gold nugget. If you're going to show up one time, you're not going to see the payoff. You got to keep at it. Beautiful. Yeah. Now, that said, if you need to keep at it with your brand development, with your messaging, and you're not quite sure where to start, head on over to www.shaunalee.com, because I've got a great brand visibility vault resource for you that's on that page. So go check that out right now. With that, Meredith, thank you so much for being on the show. You know, there are going to be more conversations just like this. So let's keep in the loop. We'll chat soon.